Congressman Michael Waltz from Florida, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army Green Beret commander, and served in Afghanistan, member of the House Armed Services Committee. Good morning to you, Congressman.
Good morning.
Good morning. With your military experience, we wanted to ask you about this. What does this mean for us? The president at the beginning of the month, remember, he said Iran's planning a sneak attack, and he said they'll regret it, we'll fight back. Does this mean that they can spy on us? How do they use these satellites, and what's your reaction?
Yeah, well, the first thing in terms of satellites, this is why we need a Space Force. We are not alone up there. Our entire economy is dependent on what is up in space, and the Chinese in particular, but also the Russians and other countries have developed the capability to take those constellations down, and our entire economy, our entire modern way of life depends on it. Number two, a missile that can put a satellite up in space can also carry a nuclear warhead. And so for critics of the president about withdrawing from the Iran deal, it's not just about making the bomb. It's also the missiles and those components, the ability to put it into a warhead, and all of those other pieces that Iran has been advancing forward. That's why keeping the sanctions in place is so critical, and that's why being able to have the defenses to take these things out is also critical. And so that's what the president has been absolutely right on this all along.
Congressman, I think it's kind of interesting to see a country whose economy is flat on its back, who's embarrassed itself by shooting down a passenger jet, who lost its chief commander, thinks this is a priority for them, knowing that they've been destroyed by the coronavirus, and they've lost some of their upper echelon, and their government has died from it. Why are they doing this now?
Well, because the Iranian regime seeks to dominate the Middle East, and it seeks to project power. It has a long history of creating external crises or doing things like this to divert its populace from what's crumbling within. That's why you're seeing, even after the Iran deal and the Obama administration sent literally billions into Tehran, you're still seeing daily protests because the people never saw that money. The regime doesn't care about the Iranian people. Those monies went to buy Russian weapons in Moscow and went to fund terrorism across the Middle East, and obviously to continue building a missile program that could eventually carry a nuclear weapon. So this is part and parcel for what the regime does and how it behaves. But you're right, it is struggling right now. It is barely exporting any oil. It cannot care and provide services for its people, yet it's going to continue to march towards being what it sees is a dominant regime in the Middle East. And that's why the United States has to stand firm with Israel and to contain what is a very dangerous regime led by the Ayatollah.
Congressman, you are in Jacksonville, Florida, your home right now. You got to figure out what to do about tomorrow, because it looks as if the House, after the Senate passed the big relief program, it looks like you're going to have a vote tomorrow. The big question is exactly how will you vote? Kevin McCarthy, your leader, wrote a letter to Nancy Pelosi and said, what are the details of this proposal? How will it avoid potential abuses of power? And when do you expect this proposal will be made public for the necessary scrutiny and member input that changing 200 years of House precedent would merit? What he's talking about there is a proxy vote. And, you know, perhaps England is actually leading before the United States, because yesterday it was announced that the House of Commons, kicking 700 years of tradition to the curb, is going to start meeting to talk about their democracy via Zoom. Is that something we can do?
Look, you know, in the military, as a Green Beret, and heck, even in the business, you lead from the front. And I don't understand why Speaker Pelosi has had us out of session for almost a month. I guess she's very comfortable in her kitchen in California. But the nearly 1 million Floridians I'm representing expect us to get to work. I am ready to get to work. I think it's fine if you have a few cases, if we have representatives that have underlying conditions and don't want to travel. But at the end of the day, any changes to how the House of Representatives have operated for 200 plus years needs to be bipartisan and needs to be discussed. And you know, again, Speaker Pelosi has a history of dropping things on us like she did for the last stimulus package the night before with only a few hours to read through, and that's just not acceptable. But I'm ready to get to work. I'm ready to take those votes. If we can have people in ambulances and our healthcare workers and folks in grocery stores and all of those brave Americans that are out there taking risks, I'm ready to take those risks too.
Yeah, I think the American people, they don't care how the vote is done, if it's Zoom or proxy, which means someone else can vote for you if you can't make it there. As long as it's done legally, I think the American people are just screaming, give this money to the small businesses.
Well, no, I can't overstate how desperate things are becoming for our economy. I mean, the bottom has fallen out. We have to get to work. We have to help them. She's held this boat up for over a week now. Let's get to work. I just can't say it strongly enough. We are ready to go, and let's go.
I really love what Governor DeSantis is doing. He's looking at Florida in a way in which it's not one size fits all. So Jacksonville is worked out. How do you view what the governor's doing in Florida, where the north seems okay, Miami's going to be a special circumstance, Central might be next, as opposed to Georgia, who's opening up salons and gyms right away? What's your reaction?
Well, I think this needs to be a localized approach, like you're saying, Brian. This needs to be bottoms up. The president is looking to the governors. There is a role. The governors are looking to local officials, and I think there's a role there. North Florida is having a very different experience than, say, Miami, which has been a hot spot. Wyoming, different than downtown Manhattan. And so at the end of the day, this is about personal responsibility. If you are out jogging on the beach, or you're out in a park, or you're going to the grocery store, we need to uphold the guidelines. But also going forward, back to the legislation, I do want to see a payroll tax holiday, and I do want to see liability protections. As we begin opening up, we can't have ambulance chasing trial attorneys starting to sue these businesses because they didn't wipe the counter a certain way. Or, we've had cases already where employees get sick and then they start suing their employer. So I want to see those in future legislative packages, and that's why there is no reason we should still be in recess. The American people expect their Congress to work for them, and these are the types of things that we need going forward.
All right, joining us via Skype from Jacksonville, down in Florida, where the beaches are open. Congressman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.